Hello, this is a TradeSight market recap. I wanted to post a video that walks you through what happened to the market on the day that Twitter came public, just so we always have it for the records. I think it was an interesting trading session, certainly an interesting reaction to the stock going public. For the weeks leading up to, a couple of weeks at least, leading up to the IPO of Twitter, we saw a lot of volume in the market, although we were just sort of drifting. There wasn't any significant movement up or down during that period. And it felt like there was a lot of money positioning itself for the IPO of Twitter. And this is for November 7th, 2013, when Twitter finally came public. Stock was priced at $26. That means that's where those who got the IPO shares paid. And then the stock started trading about an hour and 15 minutes into the market. So what we're going to do here is this is a look at the S&P, the ES futures. This is as of the close the day before Twitter came public. So Wednesday the 6th closed right here in the 5-minute chart. And these are our TradeSight futures levels for the 7th, so going into the new session. So I'm going to go bar by bar here and show you, first of all, this is where the market opens. This is the opening 5 minutes of the day. Kind of gapped up near the R1 level, the upper break level, which is a key GAN number that we use. So that's where we opened for the day, and we headed down almost immediately in terms of finding resistance right at that R1 upper break level. Let's just see how sort of the first hour of the day played out. So here's the next about 10-15 minutes in, market breaks to new highs over R1, unable to hold it, gets rejected right after that. And then we get a push down. Now, remember, gaps fill 80% of the time the same day. So not uncommon to get the gap fill here. We actually went short the futures shortly after this because the market was heading down during this bar because the market was heading down to fill the gap. So we had a short trade on in the futures just for this move. Remember, at this point in time, there's the gap fill. We're now 30 minutes into the market. Twitter has not yet come public. Again, it doesn't come public until an hour and 15 minutes into the market, the first they turn on trading for Twitter. So as we proceed here, now the gap is filled. You can see we find support right at the pivot. It literally bounced off of it to the tick. Then we broke it. Remember that the shaded area here is the value area, and we're going to cross that value area as we should once we break into it. So we're now 45 minutes in. Now have a look at this. After hitting the pivot exactly and stopping, getting a little bounce, then we break it, head down. We cross the rest of the shaded area, that's the value area, and we spike down and we hit the next GAN level, which is the lower break. That's our red line here to the tick. Again, very precise use of our levels as the market always does. Then we break that, break under the pressure threshold, break under S1. So at this point, we're almost an hour in. There's the 1 hour mark. Twitter still has not yet come public. And again, based on what happened last year with Facebook, everybody's concerned about where Twitter's going to trade. Are people going to end up underwater on their $26 stock on the first day? Nobody really knows how this is going to play out at this point in time. So here we go. Right at this moment, here we are filling. You'll notice there's a gap from the prior day, and we're filling that gap here now. So we're coming down to hit the levels from the prior session. And it's this bar right here where Twitter goes public. So Twitter starts to trade. And so here's the Twitter chart. This is the first 5-minute bar. Looks kind of silly. But you can see, again, the dash line is the start of the day. So an hour and 15 minutes in, Twitter starts to trade. Now let's take a look at the first few bars. Now notice that the price level here, it actually starts trading at $45, which is a nice premium above the $26 IPO price. It has an opening range of about 3 points on the first bar. And let's take a look at what happens. It actually pushes up initially. Now, remember, a lot of this is not uncommon to see. The early action, there's a lot of excitement about Twitter, people maybe jumping into Twitter, money coming out of the rest of the market so now that the general public can trade the stock. And that might explain the sell-off that we saw earlier in the morning as people sort of geared up their trading money for playing with Twitter, which is going to obviously see some volatility for the session. And you can see that by 11 a.m. Eastern time, the stock had actually for a brief second gotten above the $50 mark. Then it came back. Now this is always what's interesting. Remember, the initial trading, look at all the volume, the heavy volume that starts out out of the gate, over 10 million shares in the first 5-minute bar. And so that low is 45. So remember, if it breaks the low, that's going to be what everybody's going to be watching is for it to break that low. If it does that, then everybody that's in this first push is now underwater. So let's have a look. Yep, here we go. It swept it. You notice volume actually had been dropping each bar. It kind of picked up again because it went under 45, fluctuated down to 44 as you're shaking out the weak hands, the people that came in, bought it immediately, and now they're already losing money on the stock. But in the end, it ends up finding a little support here at 45. Now let's flip back over to the futures, see how that same hour played out in the market. And you can see sort of a little bounce and then retracement of the lows. And here we are, we're just above the S2 level. So at this point in time, we've got our chart sort of synced. This is about where the market hits S2. And we go back to Twitter, about the same point in time. Twitter's now finding support. Right, look how exactly at that $45 level, Twitter's finding support. So we head into lunchtime. There's noon Eastern time. We'll switch back to the S&P E-mini futures. Right, so you've got that. And so here, at this point in time, a little bounce in the market on the futures. There's noon. Okay, so now we're lined up. We're synced up between the two charts. We've already had a lot of range covered here. The S&P's got 20 points of range for the day. It's pretty good. Obviously, most of it to the downside. And we get a little bounce back towards that key. Now, again, that red level is so important, probably the most important line on the chart. We bounced right off of it. We mentioned that coming down. Now coming back up, it's resistance. Exactly. I mean, keep in mind, on a 20-point swing on the ES, this is one tick, and that's exactly where we stop, is at that red line. Pretty amazing. And as lunch continues, you can see the volume drops off in the market. So there's another 9-bar down setup. You're getting the 9-bar startup counts, as you can see from the, that's the sound alert you're getting there, is whenever we have a 9-bar startup complete, we get the alarm to let us know. So that's about another hour plus of trading there. Let's take another look at what Twitter did during that hour, and again, kind of flattens out and stabilizes. Now here's the thing, as you get late in the day, here's 1300, that's 1 p.m. Eastern time. Let's get all the way to 1400, kind of real flat, almost tame action. But one thing to remember is as you get later in the day, if the stock's holding up, people are going to view that as a positive, at least initially. And sure enough, even though the market's not doing a lot and actually starts to head lower, and look at this, as they start to come back from lunch, the market actually comes down, starts sweeping the lows, and breaks even lower. 1750, that green line is a key tri-star level for us. That's a very key magnet point of the market. So here we are past 1400. This is entering the last 2 hours of play. This is generally when they come back from lunch. You see the big volume bar right there. And with that, we break lower. So let's go look at Twitter, see how it handles the 1400 switch. There's the last 2 hours of play starting. Twitter had rallied up just a little bit. And in the afternoon here, because the stocks held up fairly well, there's actually some buyers. People thinking, hey, this thing opened at 45 after being priced at 26 and has actually held up. There is buying interest in the stock. So there is another little push into the last hour. Now this takes us to 1500. That's 3 p.m. Eastern time. And again, let's do the same on the ES, which is not doing nearly as well. Matter of fact, makes a new low. This time hitting S3 to the tick and bouncing off of it. You'll notice that each of these key levels, we've hit it and paused very precisely. Always important to know where these points are in the market. So right here, we're entering the last hour's play on the market. At this point in time, almost 30 points of range on the S&P E-mini futures, the S&P itself. So what happens in the last hour? Well, the one thing is, at the end of the day, they've got the green shoe, the extra shares that they've got to dump for holding the stock up and having a good offering. And so now that starts to kick in and we start to get some dumping. And look how sharply Twitter comes in. But what's interesting is the last few minutes of play, once again, right at that 45 level. See that low of that bar right there? And then we find support, and there's the close of the day. They managed to close it at 44.91. Isn't that amazing? So just 9 cents under that key 45 level that we've been watching. So, and then this market itself, how does it close out the session? And again, there's a 13 buy signal. That's the actual signal from our Comer tool. That's the loud sound you just heard there on the market. And that gives us a general support area to wrap up the session. And that's where we closed. So Twitter ends up pricing at 26, opening around 45, finding support around 45 after pushing above 50. They did sweep some people out right here in the first about 30 minutes in, and then rallying late in the day, but then selling off sharply. Again, there's a lot of extra shares that need to be closed out to wrap up the offering, and that's not uncommon. And if you want to see the next few days, we'll jump ahead. This is what happens on the second day of trading. Little gap up in Twitter, and then it does sell off, but still holding at $41 a share. Don't be surprised if we see it get back near 26 at some point in time. How it reacts to the IPO price will be important, but certainly a much better IPO than what we saw on Facebook last year, and I think a positive. But the market itself sure took a hit on the day that Twitter came public, even though it did snap back the following day. This has been a TradeSight trade and market recap for the day that Twitter went public, November 7th, 2013. Have a great trading week.